Two commanders are about to fight a battle history never let them fight, and one has already lost it 3 times over in his own head before working out how to win. Here is the position: a pass on a rugged coast, where a mountain drops almost to the waterline and leaves a gap barely wide enough for a cart. Behind it, a Greek army under a Spartan named Brasidas, not the kind who plants his feet and dies well, but the kind who wins by moving faster than anyone thinks he can. Off the sea comes a Norse army under a warlord the sources call Ivar the Boneless, remembered less for his sword arm than his head, for finding the one door in a strong position and walking through before you know it is open. Brasidas has one job: hold the pass until nightfall. There is a harbor behind him, ships, stores, a road, people, and if the gap holds till dark, all of it gets out clean. If it falls first, it is lost. Ivar's job is to break the pass or land enough men behind it before the sun sets. And here is what makes it a real contest. Ivar does not have to do either. He can put his host back on the water and sail to a softer shore whenever he likes, but the prize is here, today. Leaving keeps his army and loses the prize. Staying means solving the hardest problem in ancient war: a disciplined spear line in a gap too narrow to flank. So the question is not who is stronger, that one dies the instant the lines meet. Here is the sharp one: the wall in this pass can stay completely unbroken, every man alive, not one shield split, and still become useless.
The wall can stand. I only need to make it useless.
Grasp how that is possible, and you already know how this is won. Both commanders do. The whole fight is which of them forces his version onto the other first. One honest word first: this is not a battlefield Brasidas ever stood on. He and Ivar lived 13 centuries apart. The commanders are real, and their doctrines grounded in what each actually did. The coast, the numbers, and the hour are reconstructed, built to test Brasidas's speed against Ivar's war from the sea. Stay to the end, and you will know how it breaks, which of them takes the day, and at what cost. It is the first morning. Walk the ground. Both commanders already have, and the ground is the opening move. What Brasidas commands is not a poem.
I saw the sea flank before his ships touched the shore.
It is a mixed force of about 7,000, a hard Spartan and Peloponnesian corps anchoring the line, with allied hoplites screened by lighter troops, javelin men, archers, skirmishers, priceless everywhere but the shoving match. He is here because holding this coast is his task, a Spartan far from home, keeping a lifeline open, the role he was known for. And offshore, the thing most tellings forget: a fleet, a screen of triremes with their own crews, sailors and marines, not the men in the pass, because a hoplite cannot row and fight at once. The ships are manned separately and already in the water, off the headland where the coast bends. That fleet is not luck. It is there because Brasidas saw the flaw in his own wall before his enemy did. Look at the position the way a commander does. Cliff on the left, nothing rounds it. Wall in the middle, nothing through it. He built it so. And on the right, the sea, open, gray, and to a Norse fleet, a road. Brasidas has raised a perfect wall with one flank nailed to a mountain and the other resting on water, and water belongs to the men he is fighting. He knows it. So the triremes are already off the headland. Men wait on the high rocks with horns and fire to signal, and he has not put all 7,000 in the gap. He has held a portion back, faced the other way, watching the beach behind his own line, because the obvious way past a wall that touches the sea is to sail around it, and Brasidas does not miss the obvious. He has seen the opening his enemy is about to reach for. The duel is not who spots the flank. Both have. It is who controls its timing. Ivar reads the whole picture from the deck in a glance. The narrow gap, the deep line, the skirmishers on the wings, and the triremes off the headland, and the signal smoke. He understands the Greek has already thought about the sea. Good. A door need not be unguarded to be a door, only reachable before the guard shuts it. So Ivar looks past the wall, to a strait beyond the headland, a narrow neck of water where the coast almost touches an island, and past that, open beach behind the Greek line. Put enough longships through that strait onto that sand, fast enough, and the finest infantry on the coast is facing the wrong way with an enemy at its back. The wall would still stand and be pointless. And the clock is not neutral. Every hour Ivar burns drags him toward Brasidas' nightfall, when the prize slips away and it was all for nothing. But he does not send his ships yet. First he sends men at the gate, not out of pride, not to prove spears outreach axes, but to buy answers. A reconnaissance in force, with a list. How deep is that line? Where are the archers, and what can they reach? How fast does the reserve come up? And the real one, will the whole Greek army fix its eyes on the front if he pushes hard here? Every Greek watching the gap is a Greek not watching the beach. The frontal attack is not the battle, it is the setup and cover, noise at the wall to hide the first crews slipping back to the ships. The lines meet, and the pass earns its terror.
The wall is only one part of the defense. The water decides the rest.
The Norse come in their own shield wall, and it is not a mob of axemen. That is a cartoon. It is a proper line, round shields locked, spears in front, javelins over the top, some bows, and the long axes further back for the moment a shield drops. On open ground, they would be a nightmare. But this is not open ground. The Greek spears are long, call it 2.5 meters of ash and iron. The Norse spears and axes shorter, and in a space this tight, reach decides who bleeds. You are in the front rank of that Norse line now. You step into the gap, and there are 3 iron points reaching for you before your own axe is anywhere near a Greek throat. The long axe that splits shields needs room over the head to swing, and there is none in this crush. It comes up, and a spear point finds the man beside you before his blade comes down. The Norse throw javelins and loose arrows into the press, and Greeks go down. The Greeks are not all sheathed in bronze. The core is armored, the lighter men far less, and the missiles find them. But the line does not open. And why does that line not break? Not because it is a machine, it is not one. The ranks behind lend weight and nerve to the men in front, the mass of them making the front harder to shift and to frighten. How much of a phalanx fight was real shoving, and how much was pressure and will, historians still argue. So take it as the model's assumption, not gospel. The depth steadies the front, and in the pauses, when the enemy pulls back to breathe, worn men trade places with fresher ones behind. Not a conveyor belt under constant contact. Just enough relief, in the gaps, to keep a fresh edge at the front longer than the enemy can. The instant that line opens, the gap is gone, and so is everyone behind it. It does not open. Then the Norse pull back, on command, in order, and Ivar has what he came for. The line is deep. The archers sit there. The reserve comes up at that speed, and the whole Greek front locked onto him while he pushed, exactly as he wanted. He has paid in men, more than he would like, fewer than a fool would, and is done spending them on a door he was never walking through. And he has learned what shapes everything now. Brasidas is ready for the sea. Not a surprise then. A race. He turns to the water. Brasidas, who watched Ivar's men peel back toward the ships even as they fought, turns to the same water at the same moment, because a commander like Brasidas is already moving before the other man finishes deciding. Now the real battle begins, with the weather, because both are watching the same sky. The wind is getting up, building since first light, past the headland, the gray stacking into something worse, and neither commander is blind to it. This is not a storm from nowhere to rescue anyone. It is a gamble they both see, and read opposite ways. Ivar sees cover, chop and murk to hide his crossing, rough water to scramble the Greek fleet. Brasidas sees a narrowing, a strait meaner by the hour, less room for many ships to force through together, more edge to a small screen holding the choke. Both bet on the same weather to do opposite things, and the sea cares nothing for either. The storm that hides Ivar's ships could wreck them. The narrowing that helps Brasidas could swallow his triremes too. These are the declared conditions. Worsening, not yet murderous. Calmer, and more longships get through, and this ends another way. Worse, and it drowns both plans together. On this sea, this morning, here is how it goes. Ivar gives the order his cautious brothers never would. To the ships, round the headland, through the strait, onto the sand behind the Greeks, keeping a strong body at the pass to hold the Greek gaze forward. And he sends his weapon, that is not a weapon, ahead of the hulls, word to the harbor and coast villages that resistance means fire and submission means life. This time it bites, because Brasidas cannot ignore it. A watchpost on the headland goes dark. A fishing crew who might have guided his triremes will not put to sea, and he must peel off a detachment to keep his own harbor from unraveling. Fewer men in the pass, fewer eyes on the beach. Ivar has thinned the Greek line without touching it. But Ivar makes one call he will not get back, and it is not a stupid one, which is what makes it matter. He launches before his scouts have fixed exactly where the Greek triremes sit in the murk. He trusts the weather to hide him more than he fears it hiding them. And he sends his landing force in waves, sensible, seamanlike, a longship at a time through the narrow water, rather than one massed rush that might have swamped the screen by sheer number before it formed. Waves are safer for the ships. They are also feedable, one at a time, into exactly the choke Brasidas is about to spring. Ivar has chosen the near beach and the careful crossing. It is the professional choice. On this ground, it is the beatable one. And Brasidas is early. Not by luck. He read the same sky and put his ships at the choke.
He is moving before the weather hides him. So am I.
Before Ivar committed. His triremes are in the strait when the first longships come through, and this fight decides the day.
I trust the weather to hide my ships. Move before the Greeks can count us.
It is not a massacre. Any telling that makes it one is lying to you. A trireme is a spear at sea, long, light, a bronze ram at the waterline, 170 men driving it, and in a strait too narrow for a bigger fleet to spread and swarm, that spear is the right weapon. But narrow water cuts both ways, barely room to build ramming speed, crosswind and current shoving the hulls, and a trireme's oars are its life and its weakness. A longship close alongside shears them off and leaves the ram useless. So it is ugly and even. Stand on a longship's deck. The oars dig, the hull leans. A Greek ram comes out of the glare and takes you square. And the timbers on the struck side simply stop being a wall, while the sea pours in and men go under in their mail without a sound. Alongside, another trireme fouls its oars and hangs there while raiders grapple over its rail. Longships take ram damage and, drawing so little water, drive up onto rocks and shallows instead of sinking, spilling crews ashore alive. The strait clogs with hulls turning in the current, but the Greek screen holds the throat, the one thing the ground was chosen to let it do. Some longships get through anyway, call it a dozen out of many, the ones that slip the screen in the chaos and murk, and they beach behind the pass and put perhaps 400 or 500 Norse onto sand where no enemy is supposed to be. This is the sequence Ivar built the whole battle to reach, and for a few minutes it is sickeningly close. 400 or 500 in the Greek rear is enough to end everything if they land together and hit at once. But they do not. They come off the beach scattered, wave by wave the way they crossed. Ivar's careful crossing paid back in full. And this is what the rear-facing reserve was for. Brasidas' men are already turned to face them, already moving, because a maneuver commander's whole gift is being in position before he strictly needs to be. The raiders fight, and fight well, and for a moment, the pass has enemies front and back at once. But they land too few at a time, into too many, with no second line coming, because the strait behind them is shut and their fleet cannot reinforce through the screen. They are not beaten by numbers alone. They are contained and cut down or driven back into a sea that has closed behind them, and the sun is dropping. Brasidas holds the pass. But do not cheer yet. There is a cost on that beach worth naming. Those 400 or 500 did everything asked of them, crossed in worsening weather, landed exactly where the plan needed them, behind a line that could not turn in time. Then time turned anyway, and no one was coming back through that strait to help. They fought where they fell, for a warlord already looking down the coast at the next soft shore. That is what the losing move costs: a brave death, a dozen ships, and a few minutes short of working. So say plainly why it broke, and give the losing side its due first, because it earned it. Ivar's plan was not a lesser man's, and it nearly won. He refused to bleed his army on a wall he had already read. He went for the sea flank, the one real weakness of a line that touches the water. He used fear as a tool and thinned the Greek defense with it, spending no lives. And he came a dozen longships and a quarter hour from folding the best infantry on the coast from behind. Move almost any piece and it tips to him. No Greek fleet, and his ships cross unopposed. No reserve, and his 400 roll up the line. A wider strait, and his hulls force through together. Calmer water, and twice as many get past. A farther, undefended beach, and the reserve arrives too late. He did not lose because he was outclassed. He lost because his two sound choices, the near beach, the careful waves, met a man who had already built the counter to both. Because that is how Brasidas won. Not by luck, not by the storm, but 3 moves before the ships met. He chose ground where numbers could not tell. He saw his own sea flank before his enemy reached for it, and put a fleet and a reserve where that flank would fall. And he was early, because reading the moment a half step faster is the one thing he did better than anyone of his age. The wall was never the real question. The water was, and Brasidas answered it before Ivar finished asking. So here is the verdict, and it is not a name shouted over a card. It is conditional, because an honest one has to be. On this ground, in this weather, with a fleet at the choke and a reserve already faced about, Brasidas wins the battlefield and holds the harbor until dark. The tactical result and the operational one both. The pass held, the lifeline got out, the objective is his. But Ivar keeps most of his host, the holding force and the bulk of the fleet pull off the coast intact, and a preserved Norse army is a threat that has gone nowhere.
I won the day. I did not end the war.
Because what makes Ivar dangerous was never his ability to break this pass. It is that he was never required to. He can put that army back on the water tomorrow and choose a shore with no gap between mountain and sea, no fleet at the choke, no reserve turned to meet him, which is the question that beats the winner. Brasidas won by knowing where the battle would be, worth everything when the enemy must come to your ground, worth nothing when he need not. So what happens when the thing you defend is not a pass a few dozen yards wide, but a coastline 1,000 miles long, and the enemy comes out of the water at the one stretch of sand where nobody stands? There is a battle where that was exactly the problem, a people with the finest defensive warriors of their age, against an enemy who came from the sea wherever it pleased, and a sea that decided who lived and who drowned. That is the next reconstruction.